Seems to be a double standard going on here, at play here. Seems really overwhelmingly obvious, and it's very irritating to me, and I hope it is to some of you as well. Talking about this January 6th at the Capitol building, when they were there to certify the Electoral College votes. And the president came out and the president gave a speech, and actually the timeline thing, and I'm not even here to talk about this, but the actual timeline, the people that actually stormed the Capitol were already up there at the Capitol before the president even went off stage, left the stage to be actually the truth to tell. They had already begun their assault on the Capitol before he had actually even finished. So that kind of makes me think, if these are actually his supporters and their patriots, if that's what they were there to support him in his position, then they wouldn't even hang around to hear the speech, the rest of the speech. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about that. That's enough confusion in itself within that. But look at the response this thing got. Now, first, let me just say that there's a loss of life involved here. And anytime there's a loss of life involved needlessly, which those folks that lost their lives in this siege, that was completely needless. And that's shameful, and that's a terrible, horrible loss. It's a terrible thing. And I'm certainly not making light of that at all. But we've seen plenty of protests. I'm not calling this a protest, but other people's words. We've seen protests all over the last year where there was a serious loss of life at times. Blocks burned to the ground, looting, entire infrastructures of neighborhoods, generally and usually neighborhoods that are already disenfranchised or economically depressed. And that wasn't described in the way that this thing's been described. This thing's been described, one congressman described it as akin to Pearl Harbor. I think that's flat out ridiculous. And again, nothing about this is ridiculous, but for him to compare these two things is just crazy. Just crazy. The hypocrisy involved in this. And let me finish before you get a knee-jerk reaction. You're all pissed off thinking that I'm supporting the president's position and all these other theories. I'm not here to talk about that. What I'm trying to point out is, listen, apparently, well, it's not even apparent. It's true. The facts speak for themselves. What actually occurred, the history of the past year. We had all these riots. Let's call them what they are, where it can burn down disenfranchised neighborhoods that were predominantly economically depressed to begin with. We can burn these neighborhoods to the ground to the point where the poor folks that have to live there, now they've lost all this infrastructure that's critical, potentially, to their well-being. A lot of these folks, if they're older folks, they're infirm, the most infirm among us. Like I've said before, quite possibly, maybe they do not drive. Maybe they can't drive anymore. Maybe they can't afford a vehicle. And so they shop in their neighborhood. They get their food in their neighborhood. They get the supplies they need in the neighborhood. They get their medications in the neighborhood. So when all this is destroyed, I saw quite a few videos. Private individuals with their cell phones lived in these neighborhoods in tears, talking about what they've lost and the suffrage that this has caused. Because the grocery store is a shambles. There's nothing there. Everything's thrown over the floor. And many times minority-owned businesses, people that lived in the neighborhood, invested in the neighborhood, their buildings are destroyed, their businesses are ruined to the point where they can't even come back from it and will not be able to reopen. And apparently all of that is, I'm not going to say that it's fine, but relative comparison to this event on January 6th. So I'm not pointing the finger at the left. I'm not pointing fingers at the right. What I'm saying is when you juxtapose these things together in the way that they're perceived, it seems obvious to me that these bastards that we have elected to represent us from both sides of the aisle, that majority of these cocksuckers, they have a double standard, okay? If you break up into the Capitol building, you run into the Capitol building, and you scare the shit out of these people, none of them were injured, by the way. None of them were injured. But that's a horrible, terrible thing. It has to be met with impeachment. It's treasonous. It's comparable to Pearl Harbor. Why? Because they got the shit scared out of them. A couple doors were broken. Some windows were broken. Notwithstanding the horrible, horrible thing that is loss of life, period, in and of itself. We've got loss of life on both sides of this, comparison. But when city blocks are being burned to the ground and looted and destroyed, infrastructure wiped away, obliterated in most of these economically depressed neighborhoods, that's okay compared to this. So what was this? This was some people who were wrong that sieged the Capitol building, and they broke in. They broke some doors, they broke some windows, and scared the living shit out of a bunch of elected officials. But this is comparable to Pearl Harbor. This is the most horrible thing in our history now, right? And now here we go. I was watching TV today, and here we have this second impeachment inquiry or whatever going on. So, yet here they still go, these pompous asses, spending more of our taxpayer dollars. The man will be out of office in how much longer? The 20th. Today is what? 13th? And they don't have anything better to do but to continue to spend our hard-earned money on some more bullshit that's going to take care of itself. Makes no sense to me. So what I'm irritated about is that these people are elitists, and they have such an elitist mentality, and they look at us as we're shit compared to them. To such a degree, consider this, that they don't even think twice about comparing this to Pearl Harbor. They don't even think twice. Oh, you come in and scare the shit out of all of us? Oh, this is the most horrible thing in our history. This is shameful. But when largely minority neighborhoods, not in every case, but largely were being burned to the ground, that was okay. Not as bad. Peaceful protests. Well, let's ask the people that endured that and lived through those consequences and lost their businesses and couldn't go and get food items at their local grocery store and couldn't go and get medications at their local pharmacy anymore. Let's ask them what they think it was like. So these bastards that we've put in office, that we have elected, and we pay their salaries. Don't make any mistake about that. They're on the taxpayer's dole. They're on the taxpayer's teat. And it's still not enough. Now they're going to spend more of our money in this frivolous pursuit, right? These son of a bitches need a knot yanked in their ass. And God forbid they take that the wrong way. What I mean is, we need to get these people out of office. We need to elect other people. We need to maybe start electing regular people instead of these professional politicians. Because clearly, they believe they possess rights, and inalienable rights that we don't possess. They believe that their life is more valuable than ours. And they believe it so wholeheartedly that they don't even think nothing about showing that. So, if you disagree with me, that's fine. I'm not for or against anything beyond this topic. What I'm talking about right here is what I'm talking about, and that is the double standard that these pieces of garbage that we've put in office, a lot of these people that, again, are living off of our tax-paying dollars. You know, the life that they have, the home that they live in, the cars that they drive, the quality of life they enjoy every day, and they have no appreciation, respect, or consideration or sense of equality for you and me. And this goes across the board. I don't care if you consider yourself a Democrat or a Republican or anything else in between, or to the left or to the right or any other thing. Shameful. That's shameful. Yeah, it was a horrible thing that happened. It should never have happened. It's a terrible, terrible thing. But this has been a really screwed up past 12 plus months anyway. And in the past 12 plus months, this is not the worst thing that's happened, in my opinion. But to them it is. To them it's just unspeakable because they get the shit scared out of them.